Should you buy the Lumix S series primes or the Sigma I series primes? Well, in today's video we'll be finding that out because I'll be comparing each of these series of lenses together since they're both very similarly priced, and I want to find out which is the best bang for buck for you guys in terms of image quality, sharpness, autofocus performance, focus breathing and all that stuff, so that you know where your money is better spent. So getting straight into it, let's just talk about the size. So the I series lenses actually come in a very small form factor. Well, actually some of them come smaller than others, some are more in line with the sort of S series prime sort of size, but yeah, so as you can see there's 3 in the lineup that are as small as this, and I mean they're absolutely tiny. I don't actually know any other full frame lens that is as small as this. So I mean, of course that's a really nice thing because we're getting something closer to a pancake style lens, so if you street photographers you'll probably love these lenses a lot. And actually I'd say that these lenses have been made sort of with photography more so in mind, because we have the clicked aperture here on the body of the lens. It's all metal construction, and just generally it just feels a bit more analog in a way. So I'd definitely say that it leans heavier towards the photo side than does the video, whereas when you look at the S series primes you don't really have much control at all. It's all done electronically through the camera. The only physical switch you have is your AF and MF switch, but you know, who actually uses it anyway? One thing I will say about the I series primes though is that when you're packing a lot of them in your camera bag and you're trying to grab a lens quickly, it does get kind of confusing to know which focal length you're actually grabbing for, because the only marking for the focal length is very small and it's on the base of the lens here, whereas on the S series primes, the 1.8 primes from Panasonic, you have a very clear indication just here on the body of the lens, so it makes it a lot easier to sort of grab it and know exactly what you're looking for. So I mean, that's one small gripe with the I series, but again, it's not a massive deal. So one of the things that I was the most curious to find out about when comparing these two lenses is actually how the focus breathing compares, because the S series primes or the 1.8 primes from Panasonic do probably the best job in the industry at controlling focus breathing, especially when paired with the Lumix S5.2 and S5.2X. Like, the focus breathing is so controlled and it looks fantastic. And I do know that of course Sigma lenses normally are built more from a photography standpoint, so I was wondering how they'd fare up when compared to, I'd say, arguably a more video-centric design lens. So what I did is I compared the focal lengths that were the most similar to each other in a focus breathing little test showdown sort of thing. So that meant that in the I series there's the 24mm f3.5 and the 24mm f2, so I compared those to the 24mm f1.8, and then I compared the 35mm f2 from the I series to the 35mm f1.8 from the 1.8 prime set, if you like, and then also the 50mm lenses as well. And as you guys can see here, with a 24mm f3.5 from Sigma, the actual focus breathing wasn't too bad, but it's definitely not as good as the performance was from the 24mm f1.8 from Panasonic. And then the focus breathing gets considerably worse with the 24mm f2. So therefore I'd say that if you're going to be doing any filming work and you want a 24mm lens, then just go for the Panasonic, or if you did want one of the Sigma ones, then steer away from the f2 version, because that one does suffer quite heavily from focus breathing. And then moving on to the 35mm f2 and the 35mm f1.8 from Panasonic, and again the same thing can be said true here. The Sigma is considerably worse than the Panasonic lens, and again that's probably because Panasonic were really focusing on making sure that the focus breathing was compensated well in the camera. And then as we go up in the focal lengths, again the Sigma is a lot worse at 50mm when compared to the 50mm f1.8 from Panasonic. I think that the sort of closer you get to your subject, then normally the worse the focus breathing effect is, and you can definitely see this here with the Sigma footage. So yeah, I'd say in terms of focus breathing, unfortunately the I series does not even hold a candle up to the S series primes. These ones are definitely superior for that, and therefore I'd say if you are a video shooter and cared about focus breathing, then definitely get the Panasonic lenses. And then I also did another test as well, but only with the 24mm focal lengths, and that was just to show how the face tracking works when you hold a object up in front of your face. And as you can see here, the Panasonic 24mm f1.8 does a fantastic job, and that's actually why I use this lens to film the talking parts of my videos, because the S5.2 paired with the 24mm f1.8 makes for a fantastic narrative lens, a fantastic talking angle lens. And then when you look at the Sigma 24mm f2, you can see there's definitely a lot more, not hunting as such, but it's definitely a lot more focus breathing. The sort of zoom in, zoom out effect is definitely a lot more exaggerated. saturated, and therefore for the, you know, purist video shooters, you may not like that too much. So I'd sort of say that for video, the Lumix S series primes definitely win. And then I also wanted to test the overall sharpness of the lenses. So what I did is I paired the 50mm f1.8 from Panasonic up with a 50mm f2 contemporary lens from the I series range, and I just took a JPEG photo of 3 items that had some details in them, and I didn't do any editing. There was no sharpening added. It's just straight JPEG out of camera so you guys can see what you're getting, you know, just with the internal camera processing. And the one big thing that I noticed was that the Sigma image came in so magenta and so purple when compared to the Lumix image. For me, the Panasonic lens definitely rendered color a lot more true to life. The Sigma didn't do that for some reason. I did check my white balance, I checked all that sort of stuff, and it was the exact same for both of these examples, so it's not like there's a difference there. And then when you look at the overall sharpness as well, I won't say there's too much in it, but again, I would actually say that the Panasonic lens is a touch sharper as well, again putting a massive point in favor of these S series primes. So after the testing, guys, I must say I was actually really shocked at just how good the 1.8 primes are from Panasonic. Despite the shortcomings of the I series lenses, I must say that they are actually really fun to use, and I actually really enjoyed taking them out and use them for both photo and video for the last few weeks. The focal lengths that I love the most, I would say, would be the weirder ones. So that would be the 17mm, the 45mm, the 65mm, and the 90mm. There's just something nice about playing with different focal lengths that aren't, you know, the same 24, 35, 50, 85. You know, so like sort of filling the gaps between those focal lengths was actually quite fun, and I was able to actually get some really interesting compositions because it was changing the way that I was actually seeing my image and, you know, my frame and stuff. So I really enjoyed that. And again, just the overall build quality of the Sigma contemporary lineup, I would say is probably slightly superior than the Panasonic S series prime lenses, purely because they are metal construction, so they feel like they can take a bit more of a beating when you compare that to the plastic build quality of the Panasonic lenses. But if I'm being honest with you guys, the, you know, plastic on these lenses is still very durable. I've had them for ages. I've chucked them around, you know, multiple times on different shoots, and I've never had any issues. So it's just more of a tactile thing at this point than an actual performance thing. But yeah, and again, for photographers, especially the guys that love, you know, the sort of Leica-esque, Fuji-esque sort of style of shooting, you're going to absolutely love this aperture sort of ring on the I series primes. It does feel very analog, like I said earlier, and makes the whole shooting experience very fun for you still shooters. With all things considered though, I'd still say that if I had to hedge my bets and put my money anywhere, it would definitely be into the Lumix S series primes. For most of the tests, they came out superior, and I just think they work fantastically with the L-Mount bodies, especially the Panasonic S5 and S5 II. The autofocus is blazingly fast, the focus breathing is super controlled, and they're really sharp and pleasing lenses. And then if you did want to have something a little bit more sort of dreamy, or you wanted to dirty up the frame a little bit, then just chuck a mist filter on top of these and you'll be good to go. And also, I guess one other massive plus of these lenses is they're all 1.8, which is really nice, whereas the I series is a little bit of a sort of mixed bag. You might get some f2s, some f2.8s, some f3.5s, and then also one f4 as well, which is a 17mm. So it's not like they're constant f2 throughout the range. It does depend on the focal length as to what sort of, you know, minimum f-stop you get as such. So I do prefer that about the 1.8 primes, because I know that no matter what lens I pick up, I've got a constant 1.8 aperture. If you guys are interested in learning a little bit more about the S series primes from Panasonic, then I've actually made dedicated reviews for most of the lenses, and you can check those out here. So again, if you're interested in buying these lenses, then hopefully those videos will help you out.